In late 1944, as heavy fighting raged across the muddy fields of Lorraine and the dense forests of the Ardennes, German frontline commanders kept reporting the same ghost story to their superiors. A German anti-tank battery, or Panther crew, would hold a vital crossroads, engaging an advancing American armored column. After a grueling, multi-hour duel, the Germans would successfully knock out 6, 8, or even a dozen American Sherman tanks and half-tracks. The burning hulks would litter the road, and the American advance would grind to a sudden halt. By all standard European military calculations, that American unit was combat ineffective. A German unit suffering similar losses would require weeks, if not months, to tow damaged vehicles back to factory depots, wait for custom-machined spare parts, or pull back to receive replacement armor. Yet, when the German defenders looked through their artillery optics 48 hours later, they were met with a sight that made their blood run cold. The same American battalion was advancing toward them once again, restored to 100% operational strength. The GIs were driving pristine, fully fueled, fully ammunitioned vehicles, often identical down to the bumper markings, as if the previous day's carnage had never even occurred. To the German soldiers dying in their trenches, it seemed as though the Americans possessed an endless, supernatural ocean of steel. To understand why German officers couldn't comprehend this speed, you must look at the radical difference in how both nations built their war machines. The German Wehrmacht approached armored vehicle construction through the lens of traditional European craftsmanship. German tanks like the Tiger, Panther, and King Tiger were marvels of precision engineering, built by skilled artisans in specialized factories. But this perfection was a fatal flaw. German vehicles lacked standardization. A transmission from a Panther tank built in June 1944 might not fit a Panther built in August without hours of manual filing, cutting, and custom fitting by master mechanics. Furthermore, when a German tank's engine or transmission broke down on the battlefield, fixing it was a nightmare. Replacing a Tiger tank's transmission required deploying specialized heavy cranes, stripping half the superstructure, and spending up to 3 full days of tedious labor in a specialized rear area workshop. The United States Army, however, was built on the foundation of the Detroit assembly line and Henry Ford's doctrine of absolute mass interchangeability. When the US Army Ordnance Department designed vehicles like the M4 Sherman, the Willys Jeep, and the GMC 2.5-ton truck, they didn't design them to be indestructible works of art. They designed them to be built fast, repaired effortlessly, and replaced instantly. Every single part on an American tank, from the track links and road wheels to the engine blocks and gun trunnions, was manufactured to identical tolerances. A bolt taken from a wrecked Sherman on a beach in Normandy would fit perfectly into a brand new Sherman rolling off an assembly line in Michigan. This design philosophy gave birth to a revolutionary tactical doctrine that left German logisticians completely baffled: the concept of treating armored vehicles as consumable goods. To the German High Command, a tank was a prized national asset to be protected at all costs and painstakingly repaired over weeks. To the American military, a tank was no different than a crate of rifle ammunition or a ration box. It was a tool designed to be used, damaged, discarded, and immediately replaced. When an American Sherman tank was hit by German fire, the U.S. Army did not waste precious days trying to rebuild it in place. If the damage was catastrophic, the crew hopped out, walked back to the company command post, and were assigned a brand new tank that had arrived that morning from a forward replacement depot. If the vehicle was merely damaged, the U.S. Army Ordnance Maintenance Companies performed what was known as a modular swap. Instead of spending 30 hours diagnosing and repairing a broken internal gear inside a transmission, American mechanics simply unbolted the entire transmission housing, lifted it out with a truck-mounted boom crane, dropped a pre-assembled, factory-fresh transmission module inside, bolted it down, and had the tank back in combat in under 4 hours. While German mechanics were meticulously repairing single gear teeth with hand files in dark workshops, American mechanics were swapping out entire engines like plug-and-play radio tubes. When a German Tiger tank broke its transmission, it became a 50-ton paperweight, waiting weeks for a factory part. When an American Sherman broke its transmission, 4 teenagers with a truck-mounted crane swapped the entire engine block in the mud before lunch. Behind this frontline speed stood the most formidable logistical organization in human history, the US Army Ordnance Department and its forward distribution pipeline. Starting from the massive assembly plants in Detroit and Pennsylvania, thousands of replacement vehicles were ferried across the Atlantic inside the holds of Liberty ships. But the Americans didn't just store these vehicles in distant ports in England. They created a fluid, continuous conveyor belt that pushed replacement armor directly behind the advancing infantry. Floating repair ships anchored off the coast of France served as mobile industrial factories. On land, the U.S. Army established vast forward equipment depots, just 10 to 15 miles behind the active front line. These depots were massive open-air fields packed with hundreds of brand-new, pre-serviced Shermans, half-tracks, and Jeeps. Engine oil topped off, shells stowed in the racks, ready to be driven to the front the moment a company commander requested a replacement. Specialized American recovery teams, driving heavy armored M25 Dragon Wagon tank transporters, followed directly behind the frontline combat units. While the fighting was still going on, these Dragon Wagons would roll onto the battlefield, winch off damaged or knocked out American armor, and haul them back to forward repair stations. If a tank could be fixed within 24 hours, it was repaired and sent right back. If it was too severely damaged, it was salvaged for spare parts, and a brand new tank was dispatched from the forward depot to replace it that very evening. By the spring of 1945, this crushing disparity in replacement speed completely broke the spirit of the German military. German commanders realized that the fundamental rules of war had been rewritten. They were fighting an enemy that could not be worn down through attrition. Every time a German gun crew spent 5 precious anti-tank shells to disable an American vehicle, they knew that 3 more would arrive to take its place before the sun set. In the final months of the war, captured German officers routinely expressed absolute disbelief when shown American forward maintenance parks. They stared in jaw-dropped silence at fields containing hundreds of identical, factory-fresh vehicles waiting in reserve, surrounded by mobile machine shops, electric arc welding trucks, and mountains of standardized spare parts stored in neatly labeled crates. The Germans had spent years perfecting the art of building individual, highly sophisticated war machines. But the Americans had perfected something far more terrifying, an unstoppable, mechanized production line that stretched seamlessly from the auto factories of Detroit straight into the mud of the German heartland. The Germans hadn't just lost a war of tactics, they had been pulverized by the inexorable, lightning-fast machinery of American industrial power.